course is the most beautiful racetrack in America, hands down.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to the breeding stock sale. Book one. Good to have you back with us.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome into the Keeneland Look Ahead. I'm Jeremy Plonk from Horse Player Now. It seems like, I don't know, a month ago since we did one of these look aheads. It's been 6 days since last Friday night, of course, the end day of the Keeneland main meet on Saturday last week with our preview Friday night. We're only 6 days removed, but it seems like so much has happened. We're set with the Breeders' Cup entries now, and we are ready to go for Friday and Saturday at Keeneland. Welcome you into the program. If you were new to it, thanks for joining us. We've been doing this for 2 meets now, started in the spring meet. It's my 29th meet working for Keeneland, dating back almost 15 years now. So proud of that association. You can get my stats blogs at Keeneland.com and check out the picks there as well. We're going to take you through the picks for the Breeders' Cup, who we like, who the other public handicappers at Keeneland.com are on. But this isn't necessarily an exercise of who should I bet or who should I pick. It's more about how to see the card, where to strategize, where the play should be based on your opinions and how you can attack them. So we're going to take two tools that we use in our Keeneland Look Ahead. One is called the Big Picture, and show you a look at that with a 10 race card on Friday. The big picture lines up like this. Here are where all the different multi-race wagers start. It looks absolutely like a menu at your favorite takeout restaurant, right? I mean, you're ordering by number here, but there are a lot of things to decipher, but this is how you can visualize how the day is going to go. We've got a pick 5 starting in race number 1. That's what the P5 means. Pick 4 starts in race number 2. That's normal on a Keeneland card. The early pick 5 and pick 4 always starting on races 1 and 2. Race 4 is going to start a new wager for our typical Keeneland fans, and that's a middle pick 4. So races 4, 5, 6, and 7. Beginning in race 4, we'll start a middle pick 4. Now, our first stakes on the card comes up in race number 5. It's a thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance Stakes for the marathon runners on the main track. Not a Breeders' Cup event, but a stakes race that accompanies the Breeders' Cup in recent years. The pick 6 on Friday will also start in race number 5. If the pick 6 is not hit, carryover goes to Saturday. Saturday is a must pay in the pick 6 on Breeders' Cup Day, just so you know. The Breeders' Cup Championship races on Friday will start. We see those in purple. The Juvenile Turf Sprint in race number 6. That also kicks off the late pick 5, an all Breeders' Cup pick 5 there, races 6 through 10. The Turf pick 3, a $3 bet with a low takeout. 3 turf races will be signaled out for the Breeders' Cup Turf Pick 3. We always call it the Keeneland Turf Pick 3 during the normal meet, but races 6, 8, and 10, where you see the green, those are the Turf Pick 3 races. Again, $3 minimum bet there. 7th race, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies is going to start a late pick 4, and then where you see the star with the DD, there are 3 special daily doubles being offered on the Friday card into Saturday on Breeders' Cup Day. The first of those is the Juvenile Fillies in race 7. That's going to match up with the distaff. So you take the young gals with the older gals in the daily double Friday to Saturday in that one. The other asterisk daily double you see there in race number 9 is the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. That'll match up with the Classic. So the Juvenile and the Classic, the main track dirt horses, the 2-year-olds on Friday, the older horses on Saturday. And then finally, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf wraps up that Keeneland Turf Pick 3 and also has a special daily double wagering between the Juvenile Turf and tomorrow's Turf, or on Saturday's Turf, on the Breeders' Cup card. So that's a look at the special wagers, and we've got quite a few of them here, even more so on Saturday. And I give 3 key plays on my big picture each time here on the Keeneland Look Ahead. And the reason for that is I don't think every race is to be bet equally. I don't think that's a good betting strategy. If you have $100 on a 10 race card, betting $10 on every race is not the best way to spend your money. Some races are better gambling opportunities than others, and some races you have a stronger opinion than others. So why wash them all with one size? It's not one size fit all. So budget, plan, strategize. And that's why I try to break it down into 3 key plays on a card like this. If you can kind of visualize what you want to do for the day and break it down into 2 or 3 really key plays, then you can certainly bet the entire card. But most of your money, the higher percentage of your money, should be going on those key plays. And then you kind of work around it with some fun money, if you will, and trying to just play some races for entertainment value. If you're betting seriously, you're skipping those races as a serious gambler. But as a casual and recreational gambler, and certainly on Breeders' Cup Day, having some skin in the game makes it a lot more fun and a lot more interesting. And there's nothing wrong with that. But even on Breeders' Cup Day, again, equal bet weights over the same number of races, not the way to do it. So let's try to make you think like a gambler here tonight as we look at these Breeders' Cup 10 races for Friday. And again, so those key plays for me as we go back to the big picture, set goals for the day. Like, what are you trying to do here? Are you just trying to have a little fun and build your bankroll for Saturday? Are you trying to make a big score at this year's Breeders' Cup? Or are you playing it like you normally do any other day of the year? Figure out which kind of player you want to be, and that's going to determine on how you're going to attack on Saturday. For me, I want to go for the multi-race wagers. I think the Breeders' Cup pools are fantastic, and I'm going to try to attack the pick 4s and pick 5s and get the big payoffs on horses who are equally matched, but so many different contenders in a lot of the races. We're almost guaranteed to get a nice payoff in the pick 4s and pick 5s, no matter how it comes out, unless it just completely chalks out. So for me, I'm setting my goals. I want to try to be a pick 4, pick 5 player. And I think you need the budget for those pick N bets, the pick N being the pick 4, the pick 5, the pick 6. Budget for those early and play them early. You're not waiting on the tote board to see what's going to happen. Weather's supposed to be beautiful on Friday at Keeneland. We don't have to worry about conditions changing and things like that. Get your bets in for the pick 4s, pick 5s, and then adapt your day around that. So let's just say keep it simple. You've got a $100 budget for the day. You really want to attack and be a pick 4, pick 5 player. You're probably going to play 1-2 sequences at like $30, $40. That's going to knock out $80 of your budget. You got $20 to play the other 8 races on the card. You nickel dime, you have a little fun, you hit a little something, and you play around that way. But get in early on those bets, because what you don't want to do is spend your budget throughout the course of the day. It's a 10-race card. You got a lot of excitement, a lot of stakes races. Starts early in the morning. The races are 40 minutes apart. It's longer than a regular race day. It begs your impatience to come to the fore, and you don't want that to happen. So if you're going to play pick 4s, pick 5s on the day, know who you like early, get the scratches and changes, obviously, and then dig in and get your bets in for those. And then you can kind of play the tote board, see where there may be an overlay and what percentage of your budget that you have left over. Maybe you're just going to say, I'm going to keep that last chunk for an opportunistic win bet, right? A horse who I thought would be 6-1 and is 15-1. And I want to have some budget to jump at a horse like that. But get your pick 4s, pick 5s in early. That way you're not trimming horses off those tickets later in the day because you haven't had a good score. Also, you're not throwing horses in willy-nilly into a pick 4, pick 5 because you hit a couple races earlier in the day. You've got to bet to your opinions. And so your opinions don't change based on whether or not your opinion on race 7 doesn't change because you hit the exact in race number 2. Your budget changes, and your bankroll changes, I should say, but your opinion doesn't change. So don't be throwing money willy-nilly around and saying, well, I'm going to add this horse now, and I'm going to add this horse now, and I'm going to add this horse now because I hit a little something earlier. It's going against your handicapping. Your handicapping told you, I think there are 3 horses who can win this race. I only want 3 on my ticket. Don't bet the ones you fear, bet the ones you like. And that would be the advice to give. So in terms of strategy, get in on those. And then the key plays that you're looking at for the day. I do have a horse I like on the undercard at a nice price in race 3. We're going to go through each of one of these races here in just a moment and go through the picks part of this. So for me, normally I wouldn't get too wound up on an undercard on a Breeders' Cup Day. But when it comes to the 2-year-old races on Breeders' Cup Day, I'm not as aggressive here as I am on Saturday when I know the horse is a lot better. So my Breeders' Cup bankroll here is going to be predominantly on a couple plays later in the card, but one on the early part of the card I really like in race number 3. So I want to make sure we can attack that and know ahead of time that there's a race there that we want to jump into. Then for me, race number 7, the Juvenile Fillies, is going to be the one that I really want to get interested in the most, because they say the enemy you know is better than the enemy you don't know. Look, we've got a lot of Europeans coming in for 3 turf races, right? So the 2 dirt races that we've seen all the horses run in are the juvenile fillies and the juvenile. And the juvenile, for me, looks like Cave Rock is a standout. So the juvenile fillies is the race where I got to make my hay on Breeders' Cup Future Stars Friday, because that's the enemy I know. These races are all hard to hit, but I've got an opinion in there. We'll press it, and we'll tell you about that horse in just a bit. So, if you follow European racing, or you're a great turf handicapper and those other Breeders' Cup races are the ones that you like, then your 3 key plays look different than mine. I'm not telling you that's the way you should strategize for the day. I'm playing to my strengths there. And so the enemy I know are the dirt horses here in the U.S., particularly horses that run at Keeneland. And we've got a pretty good evaluation, I think, of a horse running in that juvenile fillies race that makes it one of my keys of the day. So let's talk about the other public handicappers and my picks at Keeneland.com. You can go there. There's a printable version of this under the handicappers consensus at Keeneland.com. This is just a screenshot right off the website, so it'll look just like this, and you can print it out as you go through your handicapping. I always say you're not just looking to say, okay, well, Scott's got the 8, so I'm going to bet the 8, or Gabby's got the 2, I'm going to bet the 2. You want to look at this in terms of, are the races competitive? Are the same horses being picked in every single race? Are there 4 or 5 different horses being picked on top in this race? That'll tell you a race is more difficult or more wide open. Race number 1 on this Friday card at Keeneland, as we get into our handicapping now, is an allowance race, 1 mile and a 16th on the main track. These races tend to go towards speed. So while the horse like Ethereal Road, I think, is highly talented in here, doesn't necessarily fit the profile. Ethereal Road was a really good 3-year-old this year, second in the Rebel Stakes, and was punching towards the Triple Crown. A deep closer. And for Ethereal Road to win this race, there's going to have to be a lot of speed to show early and then come back to him late. I don't think there's a lot of speed in this race. I think B-Doc is loose on the front end. I think this horse, coming out of sprint races, did not show front-running speed in the Perryville last time or in the Pennsylvania Derby against Duffer. But if you go back a few races, this horse is able to press, go to the front, 7 furlongs at Keeneland in April, right up to the front, drew off and won by 11 over this track. I don't think there's any early speed in this race, hardly at all. So I think it's an easy front-running lead for B-Doc. And jockey Luis Saez riding B-Doc. Saez finished up the meet on an absolute roll, right? Closing day and closing weekend at Keeneland, he was rallying into that riding title. So Luis Saez riding extremely well at the end of the Keeneland meet. And, I think he's got the right horse here because of the pace situation. I'll also give Open Road a shot in here for Brad Cox. This is a horse who was second to B-Doc at Ellis Park in that 7 furlong allowance race back in July. Another one coming off a race at 1 mile and an 1/8 for this one. And so it's not the Pennsylvania Derby per se for Open Road, but it was allowance company. But cutting back in trip here shouldn't be that big of a deal because there's not a lot of sprint type speed in this race. So Open Road's got a big chance in here, but B-Doc, I think, is the horse to take in the opener. And of course, my other public handicappers there, we've got B-Doc with Tom Leach. Open Road taken by Scott and Kim. And then Gabby's on the island. She's hoping Ethereal Road gets enough pace, or maybe has a change in running style under Irad Ortiz. First time with the Ortiz up. Maybe that shakes up Ethereal Road for Wayne Lucas and gets that one a little bit closer to the pace. Let's take a look at the big picture, and we know the early pick 5 is going to start there in race number 1. I think you want to use B-Doc in there if you want to go a little bit deeper. Certainly Open Road and Business Model, I think, has got a shot in there also. Under Gaffleone, this is a Candy Ride. The Candy Rides usually run really well at Keeneland, and Business Model ran a good race there. A couple deep, 2, 3 deep, I think, in race number 1 to start the pick 5. Let's go to race number 2 on the program, and this is going to start the early pick 4. Typical for a Keeneland program for race 2 to be an early pick 4. And this is a really typical Keeneland fall race. It's a 7 furlong maiden special. We get quite a few of these each season, but we don't get horses with the pedigree of Magical Song very often. This is a son of, or daughter of Tappet, and out of the great champion filly Songbird. She's going to take a lot of play for trainer Brad Cox. I think she'll be lower than the morning line offering, and I think Magical Song's one who's going to get bet quite a bit in here. But I like my chances with Classy Bridget. She's got a race under her belt. She's got a little experience. Chris Hartman trains. Good closing effort in the debut. It's going to have to be a little bit closer to the pace in here for sure, and comes out of a race in which Pretty Mischievous won that race and then came back to win an allowance race at Churchill Downs next asking. So Classy Bridget coming out a good race. I think Magical Song, the Brad Cox first-time starter, he wins with a lot of firsters here in the fall at Keeneland. certainly considerations there. And there's some other good options in this race. You've got Vivid Dreams, first time starter by Arrogant, $250,000 purchase. Todd Pletcher and Rapoli Stable, Luis Saez, a lot to like off of good work there. So not telling you a whole lot that you don't know other than, I'm going to try against the first time starters in this race. Classy Bridget, the top one for me in a race where, Gabby and Scott are on the same horse, and then it's Magical Song. So it's Classy Bridget coming off the good debut, or Magical Song, the first timer with the hot pedigree. That seems to be the general consensus in race number 2. Third race on the card does not start any multi-race wagers, but it's going to be part of that early pick 4 and pick 5. And as you see in my key plays of the day, this is a key undercard race for me here, because we've got a price play. Call Me Fast, double-digit odds in the morning line, 10, 12 to 1. I think we can expect on this runner. And I'm looking forward to Call Me Fast back off a beautiful maiden win last time out. This is a horse who took 5 chances to break the maiden for Mike Puig, but really impressed visually in that win October 8th here at Keeneland. Keeneland is one of the great horse for courses at any venue around America when it comes to the main track. We only run 16, 17 days in the spring, 16, 17 days in the fall over it. And some horses love it and some horses don't. And when you catch one who loves it, you want to play them back, and you want to play them back as often as you can. Call Me Fast ran extremely sharp in that race on October 8th. I think from the inside, Francisco Arrieta is just going to send. The benefit we get here is people will probably be a bit snobbish in their handicapping, because this is not going to be just like Kentucky simulcast players. This is the whole world chiming in, and certainly the North American pools where the money is going to be commingled. They're not going to jump on Francisco Arrieta and Mike Puig. It's a good buyer speed figure that's going to take some money. So Call Me Fast may not get bet heavily in here, but there are enough big barn influence in here that I think you're going to see a fair enough price on that. Steve Asmussen's got Marsalis on the outside, and I think that horse alone will help keep the price up on some of the others, because I expect Marsalis to be pretty solidly favored in here, coming off a good second place finish. He's so well bred by curling out a Hot Dixie Chick. Been a blue hen mare for Asmussen and Stone Street. So Marsalis is going to be tough, but I just love that horse for course feel that the one Call Me Fast is offering on paper. And I like when I look across this handicapper selectors box. Those of you who watch the show every night during the meet know I call it on an island. I love it when I'm the only person who has the horse in the top 3 anywhere. We're on the island with Call Me Fast. I love it. Maybe people are thinking with the bigger barns coming in and these races, $160,000 allowance, that the competition gets a lot stiffer than what Call Me Fast faced during the proper part of the meet. But I don't buy it. I think it's a horse for course angle that we can play to a price. Call Me Fast, the best play on the undercard, maybe the best bet on the entire card. I'd say co-best bets with race number 7 for me coming up on the Friday program. Let's go to the 4th on the card and back to the big picture to see what we've got cooking here in race number 4. This is where the middle pick 4 is going to start. Middle pick 4 is races 4, 5, 6, and 7. This is atypical of a regular Keeneland meet racing card. So this is a special for the Breeders' Cup, races 4, 5, 6, and 7. It's going to include 2 undercard races and the first 2 Breeders' Cup races. So a little bit of a hybrid there in race number 4 as we get going. Let's take a look at the picks. I'm on Arabian Lion here for Bob Baffert. This is going to be a very short price favorite. Arabian Lion, dominant 3-5 winner in the debut. Not quite sure where they took the blinkers off after the debut, but maybe they want the horse just to relax a little bit more, going 7/8 of a mile, coming off a fast win. You go to Irad Ortiz. This is the son of Justify. Justify's had a winner over the main track or two during the course of the spring meet, and his horses are running pretty good at on the track with his 2-year-old crop right now. So Arabian Lion, no surprise here. The surprise to me is only 2 of us took Arabian Lion on top, myself and Kim Nelson. Protege, the top pick for Scott, Tom, and Gabby. So maybe we've got ourselves a little tighter race than expected. Protege is a winner in the career debut for Ron Moquette by Good Magic, a horse who, ran really well here over the main track, Bluegrass Stakes here at Keeneland in his racing heyday. Protege was a September 21st debut winner in a good time, 109-4 at Churchill, and beat Lugan Knight. And Lugan Knight came back here and won at Keeneland during the fall meet. So I think that's probably what a lot of folks are jumping on, that Lugan Knight running line. The Lugan Knight race, it wasn't like totally wild about, though, the win here at Keeneland. It was a victory, all right, but it wasn't like a run a hole in the wind kind of 2-year-old performance where you think, wow, you beat Lugan Knight, you can take anybody. I think Bob Baffert bringing in a $600,000 Santa Anita shipper Arabian Night, Arabian Lion. That just speaks stronger to me. But anybody who wants to take a shot against the big favorite and go for a little bit better price, you're always a friend of mine. I don't like settling for the short price favorites, but in this particular case, this horse looks like what Baffert and Mike Pegram used to call beer money. A horse you bring along on the road trip with a bigger named horse to try to win one of the smaller purses or allowance type races or a smaller stakes race on the undercard and pay for everything, right? This is the horse who's going to pay for the whole trip and the team and everything and all the good meals and everything in Lexington throughout the course of the week. So a little beer money probably with Arabian Lion coming up in race number 4. The last of the overnight races at Keeneland. We go to Stakes Company in race number 5 before we hit the Breeders' Cup pivot. Race number 5, we'll start the pick 6. The pick 6, again, there's no carryover. Obviously, we start fresh from the end of the Keeneland meet, but if it's not hit today on Friday's card, if it's not hit on Friday's card, it will carry over to Saturday. Same goes for any pick 5s on the first day of the Breeders' Cup. If they're not hit, they would roll over to Saturday as well. The stakes race here is the Thoroughbred After Carolines. It's a grade 2, a mile and 5/8 race. We don't run mile and 5/8 races at Keeneland, so there's no stats or trends to go digging into this one. You're handicapping these horses for whom you think are best, and we've got a nice size field of 10 in here to go a mile and 5/8. You wouldn't think it's a distance that a lot of horses are, being sent into battle over, but we got a good field for this one at a mile and 5/8. And Rattle and Roll is an interesting horse in here because I've been looking for Rattle and Roll to bet in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile all summer. I thought after he won the St. Louis Derby in August, I'm like, this horse looks like a dirt mile horse. Then he won the Oklahoma Derby. And they're going longer with him instead of trying to cut him back shorter. So I'm curious if Rattle and Roll can go this distance. The Dam Sire, Johannesburg, makes you think a little bit more of a miler. So while I'm a huge fan of Rattle and Roll, I didn't pick him on top or second in here. I put him third. I just don't know if the mile and 5/8 works for him. But he's a really talented horse who likes the track here at Keeneland. Of course, we saw him last year blow away the field in the Breeders' Futurity very impressively. So he likes Keeneland. It's a matter if he likes the mile and 5/8 or not. One of the horses in here who is definitely a distance runner, though, is Haywood's Beach. And that's why I went with Haywood's Beach as my top pick. This is a horse who consistently runs a mile and a half, a mile and 3/8, a mile and a quarter. This is a long distance runner. Comes off a win in the Tokyo City out in California. Ramon Vasquez rides. He was the leading rider at Remington Park in Oklahoma City last couple of years. Went to Southern California during the course of this season. Is really taken off and riding big time in Southern California. Ramon Vasquez keeps the mount here, but he's a high-quality jockey who can win on this kind of stage. Do not worry about him being tight. He can ride here on Breeders' Cup Day, no doubt about it. John Sadler trains. Of course, he's got the big horse Flightline for Saturday. Could be a big weekend for the Sadler outfit. Certainly, if he wins the Breeders' Cup Classic with Flightline, it's a big week. No matter what else happens, you take home a $6 million purse with a horse of a lifetime. It's going to be the most memorable racing day of his career. But I think Sadler's poised to win a couple races here over the course of Friday and Saturday. And I think Haywood's Beach could be the first one to get that started on race number 5, the Thoroughbred After Caroline Stakes. Now, it's a mile and 5/8. It's a little bit of a hokey distance, if you will. These horses don't run that far that often. So from a gambling standpoint, I don't get juiced up to bet races that are abnormal, where everybody's trying to do something a little bit different. They're interesting to watch. They're part of the pick 5s, the pick 6, that kind of thing. So you have to have an opinion on them if you're going to play any of the sequences they run through. But for me, intra-race, I'm not going to get too wild about the mile and 5/8 race. I think Haywood's Beach, Bow Harbor, I think one of those two are probably best in here over the course of the long distance. And, if you're playing the multi-race wagers, probably good enough there. Rattle and Roll is worth using if you can afford it on your ticket and you're not spending that much. Arabian Lion's going to be a short price in race number 4. So if you get that horse home, you're probably looking at, at least one big favorite in there. Classy Bridget, Magical Song, there's probably not a big price there. B-Doc's not a big price. So, you've got to get Call Me Fast in, our horse who's 12-1 there in race number 3. We got to get that one in. And then we're talking about having a nice early pick 4 and pick 5 that we can, get a nice return on. But, Haywood's Beach, I don't think is going to be favored in here. I think that roll is going to go to Rattle and Roll. So take your chances, go to mile and 5/8, buyer beware, that kind of distance. Back to the big picture we go for race number 6 as we hit the Breeders' Cup portion of this card, where 24 minutes in, so let's see what we can do here over the last 5 on these Breeders' Cup races. Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint starts it off in race number 6. It starts off the pick 5, and also the Keeneland Turf Pick 3, which is now the Breeders' Cup Turf Pick 3 on these 2 special cards. In the 6th, I ended up going with Dramatized in here. I like the form from this horse winning the Queen Mary Stakes back in June at Royal Ascot as the 5-2 favorite. Now you're getting 15-1 in the morning line. In June, she was winning the Queen Mary, and now you're going to give me 15-1 in the Breeders' Cup later in the year. I'll take my chances there on the Carl Burke trainee. Dramatized the top pick for me. I think we're going to get a decent price. And people who follow Keeneland know the turf sprints, I always tell you this, post 3, 4, and 5 do exceptionally well in Keeneland turf sprints when you have a big full field. Smaller field doesn't really matter. The horses have more room to maneuver. But in a big field turf sprint, 1 and 2 are pinned down to the inside. They've got a much smaller percentage of success. The outside horses lose ground. They've got a smaller percentage of success. Post 3, 4, and 5. If you can find horses you like in those posts, I always say go for it in that situation. So I've got Dramatized in post 4. I like that. And a fresh horse in a turf sprint. Hasn't run since August. You're going to run well off a layoff in horse racing. Turf sprints and turf miles are the 2 easiest places to do it. So we will take our chance with Dramatized. And again, on an island for the second time in 6 races and on the island for the first of the Breeders' Cup races. Among the other handicappers, Speedboat Beach gets a lot of love. Kim and Tom got that one on top. Gabby's got a 3rd. Sharp as Attack for Gabby. She's got that one on top. A horse who ran really good at Monmouth, then disappointed last time out. I think Sharp as Attack is a contender in here. Scott's going with Tyler's Tribe, the Iowa-bred superstar on the dirt against the state-bred and some open company out in Iowa, but has never raced on the turf and has never faced this kind of competition. Be curious to see what the feel-good story Tyler's Tribe is in the win pool on the tote. A lot of good feelings and a lot of good tidings towards that horse named for the youth Tyler. And so I'm rooting for Tyler's Tribe, and Scott will certainly be rooting and investing as well. But for me, give me those post 3, 4, 5 with horses I like. Dramatized, Mischief Magic, and then Love Reigns down to the inside for Wesley Ward. Nobody wins more turf sprints at Keeneland than Wesley Ward, far and away. He is the king of the turf sprints at Keeneland. Statistically, he's won, I believe, I don't know what it is now, 34, 35. We were keeping up with it during the meet. 34, 35 turf sprints here at Keeneland over the years, and the next closest trainer had 6 or 7 now. So it's like Wesley and everybody else when it comes to winning turf sprints at Keeneland. He's got Love Reigns in there. Certainly, you've got to respect. And Wesley has won the juvenile turf sprint 3 years running. So not a bad guy to be backing. I think if you're playing multiple race wagers, you definitely want to include Love Reigns, I think the main entrant in there for Wesley Ward. Let's go back to the big picture. Of course, race number 6, we just said, started the pick 5 and the Keeneland Turf pick 3. Race number 7 is the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. It starts the late pick 4 and also the 2-day daily double, the daily double between the Juvenile Fillies and the Distaff. And I will tell you this is a bet I like. Now, we see in my key plays, my final key play 3, Juvenile Fillies, the enemy you know versus the enemy you don't know. I was saying earlier, these Breeders' Cup races are all difficult. So the horses you're trying to handicap and evaluate, stick to the ones you know when you want to really lay into it and bet your strongest opinions. You can bet the other races with more of the horses that are X factors to you or unknowns, but you don't want to be invested on those at the same level and weight of your money when you don't know them. So the enemy we know here is the Alcibiades Stakes. And here at Keeneland, the local prep for the Juvenile Fillies run the first day of the meet was a race where Wonder Wheel had everything her own way. It all set up beautifully for her. It looked like it would on paper. She was the top pick here, and she ran like it. But she was tired at the end, and they were getting to her, and this is going to be a completely tougher and better race with the competition that she'll have to knock out. I don't think Wonder Wheel repeats. But what I do think is the filly who ran second in that race, I think she's the one to beat. And when we get to this race here in the 7th, I'm all in for Chop Chop. She's 4-1 in the morning line for Brad Cox. Cox has won this race in the past. Juju's Map, who was second in it last year in 2021. What a great record at the Breeders' Cup for Brad Cox. He's got 8 wins from 20-some starters. He's hitting like 30 insane percentage in his rising career. So I think Chop Chop, who was flying at the end of that Alcibiades Stakes, I think she's going to get the victory. The back end of the other race that's usually in your consideration for the juvenile fillies every year, the Frizette in New York. Chocolate Gelato won that, but didn't go very fast at the end. And so I think this race sets up for somebody to come by at the end and close it out. And I think it's Chop Chop. She's 4-1 in the morning line, and she's my key play in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. So we're going to try to make some money with her for sure. And as we said on the big board with that daily double there in race number 7, it's the Juvenile Fillies to the Distaff. And as much as I like Chop Chop on Friday, I like Society and tomorrow's Breeders, or on Saturday's Breeders' Cup Distaff even more. I just think she's lone speed, and I think she's getting really good at the right time. And so you give me a daily double, Juvenile Fillies to the Distaff, Chop Chop over Society, and that will be the biggest play that I make on Breeders' Cup Friday. That's the one that I want. I want to get Chop Chop in this race and be live to tomorrow's Distaff to the point I don't need to bet the Distaff. Be live to a big double, and that's how we're going to strategize and play two of the enemies we know. We know pace scenarios, and we know how good Society was in the cotillion. We followed this filly. She's training extremely well at Keeneland. So for tomorrow, or for Saturday's Distaff, it's Society for me. The double in this race, the Juvenile Fillies to the Distaff. Let's just punch it. Let's just punch it with those two, Chop Chop and Society. And if we're right on those two, we're looking at a nice double there, right? I mean, you're thinking about a horse who's probably going to be maybe third choice here, second, third choice in the Juvenile Fillies, not the favorite. Chocolate Gelato will be favored for sure. And then you get to tomorrow, Society's going to be no better than fourth choice, I don't think. Third, fourth choice at the absolute lowest. And you got to beat Malathot and Nest to do it. I think you're looking at a juicy daily double. This could be something that's $80 for two, something like that. Chop Chop to Society, $60, $80 for a $2 double. That would be very, very interesting and tempting. So let's see if we can get that kind of price. But we're going to play it. You'll get a chance to see some of the probables and things like that. If you're on track, I'm sure some of the screens will be scrolling between some of those. But really, you want to be on an ADW or at home if you're playing and check the probables in those pools and see what they're paying. But I think in that double, I think we could be looking at something really nice for the juvenile fillies. So let's go to the 8th race on the Friday card and get back to the intra-race wagering, if you will. It's the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. And in the Juvenile Fillies Turf, we've got a big field of 14 plus 2 also eligibles. This is a race that's really hard to formulate an opinion on. So let's go to the selectors box here. Also see Chop Chop as Kim and Gabby's top pick, and Scott. So a lot of us are on Chop Chop. Maybe Chop Chop will be the hype horse and end up bet below Chocolate Gelato. If that's the case, then we might really want to play that double even more, because if the win pool odds are an underlay, and really, I'm not looking to bet win on Breeders' Cup Day, folks. I'll just be honest with you. You know, I mean, 6-1 pays $14 on Breeders' Cup Day, or it pays $14 at Mahoning Valley next Tuesday. I mean, 6-1 is 6-1. Now you say the horse maybe should have been 2-1 because of the competition, but it's still betting a 6-1 proposition in a horse race and getting the same return. I think it's about playing the multi-race wagers and the gimmicks on Breeders' Cup Day. So if the selectors box here is, I thought, you know, Chop Chop was a little more creative pick. If it's not, then you're looking at a situation where maybe you want to just lay in more to the doubles and things like that from race 7 to 8 and from race 7 to tomorrow in the Distaff. I do think Grand Love's an interesting horse at 20-1 there in the 7th, working backwards a little bit. She was taken out of consideration for the October preps after running 3rd, stretching out in the Philly Stakes at Churchill and the Pocahontas by Steve Asmussen. I think she comes in fresh. She's got speed. I think Grand Love's going to run a long way. So if you are playing intra-race exotics, I think Grand Love could hold for 2nd or 3rd and blow up the ticket pretty nicely in the 7th. Let's go to that 8th race we were talking about, the 8th being the Juvenile Fillies Turf. I did not have a big, strong opinion in here. The one thing I did was I went back and I watched the replays of the races. The Miss Grillo Stakes has been a pretty telltale prep for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf over the years. And the horses coming out of the Miss Grillo had a really easy time of it. It was a slow pace, but they quickened home when they were supposed to. Those being Free Look and Pleasant Passage, the 4 and the 5 here. I give both of them a shot because the Americans have really held their own well in the Juvenile Fillies Turf historically. This is, Europeans, you think, on the turf here at the Breeders' Cup, and they've done very well with the boys in the Juvenile Turf. but not so here in the juvenile fillies turf. It's been dominated by the Americans. So I gave a look in here to the 4 and the 5 from the U.S. and also Delight the 9. You watched the meet here at Keeneland. The way she won the Jessamine was highly impressive. Delight drew off big time for Jonathan Thomas. This is a much tougher race for sure. She won't get it quite as easily up front, but I think she's a good filly, and would not be surprised if she comes back and runs another good one. I put her second. Scott's got her on top in here. Gabby's got her second. So a lot of love in there for Delight. The Jessamine Stakes does tend to underachieve just a little bit in the Breeders' Cup. A lot of years, I remember like La Coronel and some of those good Cassie fillies that came through here. I just thought, wow, they were so good. And then they get to the Breeders' Cup and they don't quite deliver exactly what we're expecting. Aunt Pearl did, though. I remember Aunt Pearl a couple years ago in the 2020 race here for Brad Cox. So you could certainly come right out of that Keeneland prep and wheel back and take the Breeders' Cup juvenile fillies. But to me, a pretty wide open race. And as you look at the handicappers across race number 8, you've got top picks, 5 handicappers, 5 different horses. I've got the 4, the 6 for Gabby, the 7 for Kim, the 9 for Scott, and the 11 for Tom Leach. That is the definition of a wide open race. And if you're telling me what's the most wide open race then on the card on Fall Stars, Future Stars Friday, it's going to be the juvenile fillies turf, right? I mean, there's complete split there amongst 5 handicappers. So that's one where, like, if you're playing multi-race wagers, probably want to spread your ticket and get a lot more coverage in that kind of race. You can expect with a big 14-horse field and no defined favorites in there that the tries and supers are going to pay huge. So if your attack is, I'm going to go after tries and supers and try to hit my big one that way, you have to put your work and your time in then and your budget into the juvenile fillies turf. That's your try super race. If we're going to get one of those $50,000 superfectas on Breeders' Cup Day Friday, the juvenile fillies turf would be the favorite for that one to come in based on the way it shakes out. Let's go to the next one on the card. It's the 9th race, and that would be the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Breeders' Cup Juvenile has got a special daily double wager between here and the Classic. But as we said, we thought it was juicy from the juvenile fillies to the distaff when playing that Breeders' Cup 2-day double. You look at the potential of Cave Rock at about 3 to 5 and maybe 2 to 5 on Flightline in the Juvenile Classic Double. Now, if you're going to get involved in that pool and get $4 back on a $2 bet, not for me on Breeders' Cup Day. But again, if that's your thing, that's your thing, unless you think they can be beat. One of them or both. And probably trying to beat one of them would be the strategy if you're going to play the 2-day daily double. If you think Cave Rock's vulnerable, then use a couple horses in here to Flightline. If you think Flightline's vulnerable, then use a couple horses in here, or use Cave Rock in here to a couple horses where you think Flightline could be vulnerable. If you have a strong opinion on one of those races that's not Cave Rock or Flightline, then you certainly want to get involved. That's where your antenna should go up, right? You're going to get outside the public if you're right on this 2-day daily double. If Cave Rock and or Flightline loses. If you have a strong opinion that those two horses, one of them may lose, then this daily double is the play for you. You want to get involved in that and check it out. Let's see how the handicappers line up here for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Cave Rock on top all the way across. Not much surprise there. Blazing Sevens, second choice by myself and by Gabby. Forte, the second choice by Kim and Scott. And Verifying, the horse I have third, is picked second by Tom. So 3, 6, 5, some sort of combination like that with the 4 in there. 3, 4, 5, 6 are the main players in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Now, Blazing Sevens is the horse I've moved up after watching some workouts. I thought when working in company with Forte a week or so ago, Blazing Sevens looked much better of the two. And I'm not surprised by that. Not because of what they've done on paper, but their last races. It was an easier race last time out for Blazing Sevens than it was for Forte. When Forte won the Breeders' Futurity here, it was a 3-furlong knockdown drag out going head-to-head with Loggins, a horse who ran his eyes out for Brad Cox. Those two really threw it down. And from the moment they were galloping out in the Breeders' Futurity, I said to myself, these two horses probably did too much to come back and be successful in the Breeders' Cup. Well, Loggins, they put away for the rest of the year and going to wait for his 3-year-old season. That was an absolutely smart move because he had only had 2 career starts. Now, when you get to a horse like Forte, he's already won the Champagne or the Hopeful. He's already won the Breeders' Futurity. He's absolutely a Breeders' Cup Juvenile horse for $2 million. Problem is, I don't know that he's doing his best after the race as he was going into it. When he worked in company with Blazing Sevens, when he worked in company, not with Blazing Sevens, but when he worked in company with Arc, the Arc horse who's in here, Lost Arc, yeah. Yeah, let me get myself straight here. It was Forte and Lost Ark working in company. Forte had just beaten Lost Ark by 10 lengths in the Breeders' Futurity. In the work, it looked like Lost Ark was going better and Forte was struggling. So I don't think Forte is going to come back and run his race in here. I do like the work for Blazing Sevens, and this is where I got myself confused. Blazing Sevens, of course, trained by Chad Brown. The other two horses we're talking about, Lost Ark and Forte, are Todd Pletcher's. Those two work in company. Blazing Sevens work in company that really impressed me is when he outworked Jack Christopher, who's probably going to be the favorite or the second choice in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Jack Christopher is now not running in the Breeders' Cup after that work. And I really think Blazing Sevens made himself a morning case as a horse to watch in here. So for me, Breeders' Cup Juvenile looks like an ice cold exacta. I think Blazing Sevens is the horse under Cave Rock, but I don't see him touching Cave Rock in from California. If he doesn't run his race, Blazing Sevens to me is lengths better than the rest of the field, I think, coming into this race. We'll see how that shakes out as true or not. Final race on the card that we're going to handicap here is the 10th. It's the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, and this is a race where the Europeans have had success. And the Juvenile Turf, the 10th on the card, will be part of the Keeneland Turf Pick 3. It'll also be part of that Breeders' Cup 2-day daily double. Juvenile Turf to the Turf tomorrow. So if you have opinions on these two grass races, you can match them up. Juvenile Turf Sprint was kind of a scramble, right? So that's going to be a tough one for that pick 3. The Juvenile Phillies Turf, we told you, was the toughest race on the card and the biggest chance for just a bomber. So now you get to the Juvenile Turf. If you're going to play this pick 3, we got to narrow somewhere, folks. And I think Silver Knot might be the place to narrow. You know, you talk about the enemy you know and the enemy you don't know. The best you can do with some of these Europeans is read as much as you can, read the comments in the press, watch interviews and press reports, watch previous races, read stories about them before their previous race, because a lot of times the trainers will say, we don't think he can do X or Y, or he's better at X or Y. And then they go run the race and it's either proven true or false, and yet they're still coming here. So sometimes the pre-race press in the UK and throughout Europe is useful in these kind of spots. The one thing I know is when I check oddschecker.com and where all the bookmakers in the UK kind of put their prices collaboratively together, it's a heavy favorite in here for Silver Knot. So I think the opinion of him across the pond is stronger than it looks on paper per se to me. And I'm going to trust that. I don't have a strong opinion here, but Silver Knot in the Juvenile Turf is going to be the horse for me. That's going to be the top choice in here. Victoria Road, the other one I think that you want to watch from Europe. This is an Aidan O'Brien trainee. It's going to be the better price of the two. Victoria Road and O'Brien has won this race 4 or 5 times, 5 times, I believe, in fact. So we'll see. We'll see how this shakes out by taking €2 on top. They do have the edge in this race historically. Other one I want to point out here is Nagarok, the 9. Nagarok ran really well going short, but it's bred to run longer. Graham Motion had just a fantastic meet here during the fall meet at Keeneland, so we'll see if his barn continues its strong way. So I think Nagarok at 20-1 in the morning line is a good long shot to take a look at. And the winner was an impressive winner of the Bourbon Stakes here during the Keeneland meet. But the race didn't quite come home as fast as I thought, and visually he might have been a little more impressive than he actually was. So I'm lukewarm on and the winner is. I'm not against him. I kind of think he could go either way. And so from off the pace with his rallying style, the Europeans typically really pick it up and lay it down with a better turn of foot. So I'm going to lean to the Europeans in here. I don't have a real knock on and the winner is, but I think he's going to be overbet a little bit off his win in the Bourbon Stakes. That was visually very impressive. But again, he didn't come home as fast quite as I thought he should. So respect for him. We'll see how it turns out. Good luck to Wayne Catalano, who's got a couple in here that ran well during the course of the Keeneland Fall Meet. We'll see how they show up on Breeders' Cup weekend. That's the 10 races. That's what the Keeneland Look Ahead is all about. Hope you enjoyed taking a peek at the 10 races with me tonight. We will do it again tomorrow at 8:30 Eastern, previewing the Breeders' Cup Saturday. We'll give you a little recap of how things played out on the track, maybe anything we could have picked up trends-wise with the way the main track or the turf course played on Friday into the Saturday card. On behalf of everybody at Keeneland, I'm Jeremy Plonk from Horse Player Now. Have a great night. Go Phils in the World Series. Let's go watch some baseball. Good night, everybody.